The desert was silent that night. The wind blew softly over the sand dunes, carrying only dust and shadows. Stars shined above, cold and distant, then a flash cut across the sky. Not a shooting star, not a meteor. It was something else, something alive, a small ship burning on entry. Roared across the clouds and crashed deep into the Nevada desert. The impact shook the ground, rattled windows miles away, and set a dry tree on fire. Locals thought it was a military test gone wrong, but those who saw the ship knew better. Within hours, black trucks arrived. Silent and without markings, men in dark suits and soldiers surrounded the area. Drones hovered, scanning every rock and grain. Inside the broken ship, they found her. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with glowing violet eyes and silver blue skin. Her hair looked like strands of night, and her body was weak, trembling. They thought she was dead, until she opened her eyes and whispered something no one understood. They took her to a secure underground facility. Doctors examined her. Scientists argued, was she a threat? A spy? A lost child from another world? They locked her in a clean white room with cameras in every corner. She didn't fight, didn't scream. She just stared at the stars from the small window above her bed. Jake was no one important. Just a systems technician who fixed old servers and updated broken code. He wasn't allowed near the alien room, but he passed by her window every day on his way to the server vault. One day he stopped. He looked through the glass, and she looked back for a moment. It felt like time paused. Her eyes weren't cold or empty, they were afraid. She pressed her hand against the glass. Jake, without thinking, pressed his hand too later that night. Jake couldn't sleep. Something about her face haunted him. She didn't look like a monster. She looked like someone running from monsters. The next morning he brought her a cup of warm liquid. Not part of his job, but no one noticed. She took the cup slowly and whispered again. This time, he realized, she was trying to speak English. Please, she said, voice shaking. Danger, coming. Jake leaned closer. What danger? He whispered. Dark, swarm, destroy. All, she replied. Her voice was weak, but her fear was strong. Jake believed her. He didn't know why, but he did. He tried to tell the senior officers. They laughed. She's scared, not a prophet, one said. Aliens love drama, another joked. But Jake knew it wasn't a joke that night. He returned with an old translation device. He connected it to the room's speaker. She looked at him with wide, grateful eyes. Thank you, she said, clearer this time. Then she told him her story. Her planet, once full of life, was gone, burned by machines called the Swarm. The Swarm fed on energy, light, and living things. They destroyed her people, her forests, her oceans. She escaped in a small ship, hidden by her mother. She traveled 369 light years alone. Every system she passed, she sent warnings, but no one answered until she reached Earth. Earth was next. The Swarm had marked it, and now it was coming. Jake recorded everything. He showed it to his supervisor. They deleted it and warned him, stay out of it, or lose your job, they threatened. But Jake had already made his choice. He couldn't forget her eyes. He couldn't ignore her words. He returned the next night with more equipment. I'll help you, he said. She touched his hand through the glass again. Only, you believe, she whispered outside. No one noticed the strange signal rising from deep space, a cold code hidden in static, repeating one message in a dead language. We are coming, and only she knew what it meant. And only Jake was ready to listen. Jake couldn't stop thinking about her voice. Every word she spoke echoed in his head like a distant alarm bell. He tried to act normal at work the next day, fixing wires and checking old code. But his mind wasn't on the servers, it was on her, the alien girl, alone in a white room, warning him about something Earth had never faced before. That night, Jake returned to the security room with a stolen access card. He waited until the night shift guard stepped out for coffee. Then he slipped into the surveillance chamber. He pulled up the audio files from the girl's room. Most had been erased, but one short clip remained, hidden deep in the backup logs. It was her voice, soft but desperate. Swarm, planet gone. Earth next. Jake transferred the clip to a private data stick. Then he shut everything down and walked away like nothing happened. His hands were sweating, but his heart was steady. He knew what he had to do. Back in his small apartment, he connected the data stick to an old laptop. The signal had distortions, static buzzing in the background, so he cleaned the audio, and ran it through open-source translation software. The result made his stomach turn. To any surviving world, this is not war, this is harvest. They feed on light, on memory, on life, they come through silence, and leave only bones and ash. Jake stared at the screen for a long time. Then he whispered, "She's not lying." He uploaded the file to a private server, then reached out to an old friend, Elena, a freelance data journalist they hadn't talked in 3 years. But if anyone could spread this message, it was her. He called her using a secure line. "Elena, it's Jake." "Jake? Wow, okay. This must be important." "It is," he said, voice shaking. "I need to show you something, but you have to promise me you won't laugh." "Jake, you sound like you saw a ghost," she replied. "Worse," he said. "I saw a warning. From a girl who crossed galaxies to reach us." He sent her the file. There was silence for a full minute, then her voice returned softer. "Is this real?" "She's here, Elena," Jake replied, "locked away in a cell, and no one believes her except me." But before Elena could reply, Jake's laptop screen blinked. A system warning appeared. Unauthorized data detected. Internal surveillance triggered. They were watching. He had been too slow. Without thinking, he grabbed the data stick and smashed it. He tore the power cable from the wall and wiped his laptop's memory. He was already too late. An hour later, 2 black-suited men knocked on his door. They didn't need to say anything. Jake already knew what they were there for. He was taken back to the facility, not as an employee, but as a suspect. In the white interrogation room, they played a security clip of him talking to the alien girl. "You breached security," the officer said coldly. "She's telling the truth," Jake replied. "She came to save us, not hurt us." "She's a threat," another officer snapped. "Maybe even the first wave of an invasion." "You're not listening," Jake whispered. "She said the swarm is coming." The officers exchanged glances, then left the room. Minutes later, a scientist entered, Dr. Keller, one of the lead researchers. He looked tired, pale, and angry. "She's scheduled for transfer tomorrow," Dr. Keller said. "Transfer?" Jake asked. "To a military lab," Keller replied. "For dissection." Jake felt the world freeze. Dissection? She was just a girl, a scared, tired, brave girl who had risked everything to come here, and they were going to cut her open like a machine. That night, Jake made his decision. He waited until the lights dimmed, until the cameras rotated, then he moved. He used an old maintenance shaft to reach the lower levels of the facility. It was dangerous. If he got caught, he'd be labeled a traitor. Maybe worse, but he didn't care. He reached the alien girl's room and tapped softly on the window. She looked up surprised, then she smiled. Jake held up a hand, signaling silence, then used a stolen card to unlock the door. As it slid open, she stepped back in fear. "No hurt," he whispered. "I'm here to help." She tilted her head, eyes wide, then slowly stepped forward. Her hand touched his. "Only, you believe," she said again. Jake handed her a thermal jacket and motioned for her to follow. Together, they disappeared into the maintenance tunnels. Alarms hadn't sounded yet, but time was running out, and somewhere in deep space, the swarm moved faster, drawn by Earth's warmth, drawn by the silence of its unprepared people. Only she could stop it, and only Jake believed her. Jake held the alien girl's hand as they moved through the dark maintenance tunnel. The air was cold and smelled like rust and oil. Every small noise echoed off the metal walls. They moved fast, but careful, not wanting to trigger any motion sensors. The girl kept glancing back, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She was still weak, but she followed him without hesitation. She trusted him, the only human who had believed her. Jake had no plan beyond getting her out of the facility, but something deep inside told him this was bigger than just escape. Behind them, the facility was quiet, too quiet. Jake knew that once the morning shift arrived and saw the empty room, everything would change. They reached a locked hatch near the lower hangar. Jake pulled out a small device, something he had stolen from the tech lab a year ago. It was meant to override old doors. He never thought he'd use it to escape with an alien girl. The device sparked, beeped, then the hatch opened slowly. On the other side was a loading bay filled with empty crates and old supply drones. It smelled of dust and fuel. Jake guided her behind the boxes, hiding as 2 guards passed by lazily. They were chatting, unaware of the ticking clock. In the corner, half covered in tarp, was an old hover truck, unused for years. Jake checked the engine and smiled. "Still alive," he whispered. He helped the girl into the passenger side, then climbed in and powered it on. The engine coughed, then roared to life. Within seconds, lights began to flash. Security systems weren't as dead as Jake had hoped. Red lights blinked, cameras moved. An alarm rang deep in the walls. "They know," he muttered, stepping hard on the accelerator. The truck zoomed through the underground tunnel, crashing through a small gate. Guards shouted behind them, weapons raised. Bullets and plasma shots fired, but too late. The truck was already on the ramp. Rising toward the surface, outside it was still night. The desert was vast, silent, waiting. Jake turned off the lights and drove toward the canyons. Dust followed them like a ghost in the wind. In the passenger seat, the girl winced. She pressed her hand against her side, where an old wound had opened. Jake looked at her worried. "I know a place," he said softly. "We'll be safe there for a while." 2 hours later, they reached an abandoned survivalist bunker hidden deep in the canyons. It was once used during Earth's last war. Now it was just dirt, steel, and silence. Jake entered the access code and helped the girl inside. The bunker had power, food packs, and first aid, just enough to recover. The girl lay on a cot, breathing slowly. Jake used the med kit to clean and cover her wound. She didn't speak, but her eyes watched him. Trust was there, still shining through her pain. After giving her water, Jake sat on the cold floor and pulled out a small data tablet. It still had her translated message from before, but that wasn't enough. The world needed proof, real proof. "Do you have anything?" he asked her. "Anything they can't deny?" She hesitated, then reached into the lining of her thin clothing. From a hidden fold, she pulled out a glowing cube no bigger than a fist. It pulsed softly with light and strange symbols. "This record," she said. Jake activated it suddenly. The air shimmered and a 3D projection filled the room. It showed a beautiful planet full of tall trees and shining oceans. Then, black clouds, strange machines, screams and fire. It was her world, and it was dying. Jake watched in silence, heart heavy. Then a final image appeared. A massive swarm of black shapes heading through space. "Toward Earth, this is what they must see," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Jake nodded slowly. "We'll show them," he said. "We'll make them listen." He knew they couldn't go to the media. Not yet. They would be tracked, silenced, labeled criminals. But he remembered an old friend, Rafi, a hacker who once broke into military servers just for fun. If anyone could help them now, it was him. Jake powered up a satellite link, bouncing signals off hidden towers. He sent a simple message: "Proof of incoming threat. Meet now, trust no one." Then he turned to her. "Rest now," he said gently. "We'll fight back in the morning." She closed her eyes. Finally safe for the first time in years, but far above Earth. In the blackness of space, something moved, unseen, cold, and hungry. The swarm had heard the signal too, and it was coming. By morning, the desert was crawling with search teams. Drones flew in circles, scanning every heat signal. Every whisper of movement, soldiers in black armor searched abandoned towns, caves, and forgotten roads. The news channels didn't say much, just a data leak from a military facility. But behind the scenes, Jake and the alien girl were being hunted like criminals. In the hidden canyon bunker, the girl sat beside an old vent, watching sunlight dance through the dust. Her wound was healing slowly. Thanks to a silver patch from her own medical kit, Jake was pacing, his eyes on the cracked screen of a communication tablet. "We need to move," he said. "They'll find us here. Maybe in hours." The girl nodded. "Where now?" she asked softly. Jake looked at the screen again. "My friend Rafi," he replied. "He's sending help." A safe house just outside the city ruins. Outside, the desert stretched forever, but it wasn't empty. 2 bounty hunters, half machine and half man, picked up a faint energy trail near the old canyon. "Targets located," one growled into his mic. "Orders? Capture the human, kill the alien," came the cold reply. Jake and the girl left just before sunset. They rode an old desert crawler, slow but quiet. The wind howled, but their hearts beat louder. The girl looked back once, her eyes sad. "Home used to have wind too," she whispered. Jake didn't know what to say, so he just drove. They reached the outskirts of the dead city just before nightfall. Skyscrapers stood like broken teeth, shattered by time and war. Rafi was waiting in an old subway station, his face hidden under a dusty hood. "Jake, You really brought an alien girl, Raffi said, half laughing, half shocked. She's real. And she's telling the truth, Jake replied. The girl bowed slightly. I'm Siri, she said. I come to save. Raffi guided them underground past graffiti walls and broken vending machines. He had set up an old server rig powered by solar cells and backup batteries. This place is off the grid, Raffi said. No satellite eyes, no trackers. Siri placed her glowing cube on the data table. The projection lit up the room once again. The images of her dying world. The black swarm, the warning. Raffi watched in silence. Holy stars, he whispered. You weren't kidding. Jake leaned forward. We need to get this to the people. Make it public. Global, undeniable. Raffi scratched his beard. I can crack the firewall and send it through the open net, but only once, he said. After that, they'll find me in minutes. Just then, a loud boom echoed through the tunnels. The lights flickered. They found us, Raffi said. Grabbing his data drive and slamming the emergency power switch, the bounty hunters had arrived. They moved fast, weapons humming, eyes glowing red. Jake grabbed Siri's hand and pulled her down a side tunnel. Raffi, get the data out, Jake shouted. I'll buy you a minute. Raffi yelled back, disappearing into smoke and shadows. The chase through the underground began. Jake and Siri ran past broken rails and old train shells. The hunters were right behind them, metal boots crushing debris. Siri stopped suddenly and turned. Raising her hand, a pulse of blue light shot out. Slamming one hunter into a wall, Jake stared in shock. You never said you had powers, only when… Danger, Siri said, breathing hard. They climbed a ladder and burst into the surface ruins. The night sky above them was red with dust. Suddenly, a beam of light from a drone hit them. They're locking onto us, Jake shouted, pulling Siri behind a concrete wall. Siri pulled out a small device and pressed it against the drone's signal. It sparked, beeped, and then exploded in the sky. More drones were coming, but just then a roar filled the air. Raffi had sent out the message. Screens across the city ruins lit up, billboards, old terminals, even broken phones, all showing the same message. A voice played in 1,000 places, Siri's voice. This is not war. This is extinction. People began to record it, share it, post it. It was too late for the authorities to stop it now. The truth was out, Earth knew. Jake and Siri escaped through the edge of the city as chaos unfolded behind them. Where now? She asked again. Jake looked at the stars. Now? We find someone who will listen. Far above, a ripple moved through space. The swarm had received Earth signal. The hunt had officially begun. The desert winds howled as Jake and Siri made their way through an abandoned power grid. The broadcast had gone live just hours ago. Now the world was burning with questions, fear, and something new. Hope every screen had shown her face, her voice, her warning. Some thought it was a hoax, a movie trailer, or an AI prank. But others believed. Jake and Siri found shelter in an old radio tower used by local rangers decades ago. It was high, rusty, and half-broken, but still had one working satellite dish. They climbed the steps slowly, Siri still weak from using her energy. She didn't speak much, her eyes looked to the stars, searching for signs of the swarm inside the tower. Jake rebooted the controls and reconnected to Raffi's server. He smiled when he saw the numbers, 2.4 million views in 1 hour. It's spreading, he said. They're watching. Siri sat beside him and placed the glowing cube on the floor. It pulsed with soft blue light like a heart beating slowly. She whispered, "This was my mother's last gift before launch." Jake looked at her, surprised. "She sent you alone?" Siri nodded. She believed Earth would listen. Better than others. Back in the cities, chaos and confusion spread across governments and media. Military leaders demanded to know who released the footage. News anchors argued live on air, alien threat or clever hack. Some scientists confirmed the technology seen in the video was not human-made. The United Nations called an emergency session. People gathered in streets holding signs, "Believe her," "Protect Earth," "Don't shoot the messenger." But not everyone welcomed her. High-ranking generals labeled Siri a bio-risk. They claimed she could be a scout for a larger invasion. Missiles were moved into position and lockdowns were ordered. One world. Two opinions, divided by fear, united by confusion. Jake watched all of it from the tower's screen. His face darkened as he saw a news ticker. Military searching for the alien girl. Orders, detain or neutralize. He slammed his fist on the table. They're scared of the truth, Siri remained calm. They fear because they do not understand, she said softly. Jake turned to her. Then we help them understand. He connected the tower's broadcast antenna to an open signal frequency. Not just a message this time, he said. A conversation. They set up the camera, just a dusty old lens from the emergency broadcast system. Jake cleared his throat and hit record. The screen lit up. He stood beside Sari, who now wore a faded Earth jacket. Hello, Jake began. My name is Jake Nolan, and I'm just a technician, not a soldier, not a scientist. Just a man who chose to listen. He turned to Sari. This is Sari, he continued. She traveled 369 light years alone to reach us. She's not here to invade. She's here to save. Sari looked into the camera, her voice low but clear. My home is gone, she said. Destroyed by the swarm, machines that feed on life and light. I came to warn, not to harm. I brought proof. And I ask not for power, only for Earth. To live, Jake added. We are not asking for blind faith. We've shown you the truth, and now you must choose. Believe her, prepare, or close your eyes and fall. They sent the live feed across every platform. Old emergency radios, private servers, even hijacked news satellites. The broadcast went global in seconds. People stopped what they were doing, in cafes, in traffic, in homes. Eyes locked on the strange girl from the stars and the human who stood beside her. Tears rolled down cheeks, arguments ended mid-sentence. Something deep inside told people, this was real. In a classroom, a young girl whispered, she looks scared. Her teacher replied, maybe because she knows what we don't. World leaders started calling emergency meetings. This time with open minds, scientists pulled up deep space scans and found unusual patterns. Dark shapes moving slowly toward Earth. Just like Siri said in the tower, Jake received a message. Encrypted but clear. You have our attention. Let's talk. Earth Defense Council. He looked at Siri. They're listening now. Siri didn't smile. Instead, she looked up at the night sky. I only hope. It's not too late, far beyond the moon. Past Mars, past the last satellite, a signal pulsed cold, mechanical, and full of hunger. The swarm had changed course. It was accelerating. Earth had been warned. Now it had to choose, stand together or fall apart. The message had been sent. The world was finally awake. Leaders, scientists, and generals gathered in secret war rooms. They watched the videos again and again. Siri's voice, the images of her world. The black swarm moving through space. It was no longer a question of belief. It was now a matter of time. In the desert tower, Jake and Siri stayed hidden. The sky above was calm, but the silence felt wrong. Jake stared at a screen that tracked space activity. Suddenly, a red alert appeared. Unknown objects, approaching fast from deep space. Siri stood beside him, her face pale. They are here, she whispered. Jake swallowed hard. He had hoped for more time. But the first strike had already begun. High above Earth, satellites blinked out one by one. Their signals vanished, military satellites, weather satellites, even civilian networks gone. Confusion spread through Earth systems then. The power grids in 5 major cities crashed. People thought it was a glitch, but deep in the skies, invisible machines had arrived. Black as shadows, silent as death. They latched onto satellites, drained them, and moved on in New York. Planes were grounded in Tokyo, traffic lights froze. In Berlin, hospitals switched to backup power. It wasn't war. It was sabotage. Earth's defense systems kicked in too late. Lasers missed. Missiles failed to lock on. The enemy didn't broadcast any demands. They didn't ask for surrender. They just started eating. Siri fell to her knees. She could feel them in the air, in the planet's pulse. It's the same, she whispered. Just like my world. Jake knelt beside her. We're not giving up, he said. Not this time. The Earth Defense Council finally contacted Jake. He received a direct transmission. Bring the girl to Command Base Aurora. We need her now. Jake didn't trust them fully, but there were no options left. He and Siri boarded an old military shuttle flown by a rebel pilot named May. May was tough, fast-talking, and didn't ask too many questions. She flew low through the clouds, avoiding all radar. Base Aurora was built inside a mountain. It had old-world tech, hardwired, offline, safe from AI interference. Inside, soldiers and scientists scrambled around massive screens. The moment Siri stepped inside, everything went quiet. They looked at her like a ghost, some with awe, some with fear. She didn't flinch. "I will help," she said. "But I need trust." She was taken to the command chamber, a huge room filled with maps, signals, and arguments. She stood before world leaders and showed them her cube again, but this time she added something new. She pulled out a shard of crystal from her suit. It shimmered, then displayed enemy movement in real time. "This connects to them," she said. "I can feel their path." "It is how we escaped once," the scientists gasped. "You're tracking the swarm in real time," one whispered. She nodded. "But only when close, and now they are close with her help." Earth launched its first counterattack. Old warships were powered back online, EMP missiles were armed, and hidden railguns positioned around the moon prepared to fire. Jake stood in the center, watching everything unfold. He had never seen a battle room before, but now he was part of it. He looked at Siri, so calm, so focused. She was no longer just a messenger. She was the guide to survival. Suddenly, alarms rang through the base. A swarm fragment had entered Earth's atmosphere, moving fast, heading toward a major power station in Africa. "We have to stop it," Siri said, "or they will learn Earth's weaknesses." A strike team was launched within minutes. Jake went with them against orders, Siri insisted. "He must go. He understands." The dropship descended through the clouds. The enemy was there, a black machine crawling with tendrils. Draining power lines like a vampire, Jake fired the first EMP burst. It hit the machine's core and made it scream. No sound. But the air shook. The battle lasted just 10 minutes. But it felt like hours. The enemy machine exploded in a cloud of metal dust. The mission was a success, but Jake was hurt. A shard from the explosion had pierced his leg. As he collapsed, Siri rushed to his side. She placed her hand over the wound. A warm glow spread and the bleeding slowed. "You saved us," he whispered. "No," she said softly. "You saved me first." Back at Base Aurora, the Council received the report. Earth had won its first fight, but barely. The swarm now knew Earth was not undefended. But they were not scared. They simply changed formation. Faster, smarter, adapting. The war had officially begun. And Earth's only hope still rested in the hands of a girl from the stars. And the human who believed her when no one else did. The swarm had changed its shape. It moved like a storm, fast and cold, above Earth. The sky cracked with static as hundreds of black objects entered orbit. No lights, no sound, just motion, calculated and cruel. In Base Aurora, every screen showed red alerts. Cities were warned. Satellites went dark. Humanity had no more time. The enemy had arrived for the final strike. Siri stood at the command table, her eyes glowing faintly. She didn't flinch as reports came in from every corner of the globe. Paris under blackout, Beijing communications lost. Cairo defensive grid failing. Jake stood beside her, limping slightly but refusing to sit. His eyes were tired but focused. He had seen too much to give up now. Siri turned to him and placed a hand over his chest. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jake nodded. "I'm with you." All the way. The Council had approved Earth's last plan, a global shield network. It would require Siri to connect her mind directly to the command AI. Using her ancient neural crystal, she could guide the system faster than any human. But it came with a risk, too much exposure. And her mind could burn. "I will do it," she said. Without fear, the room went silent. Even the generals, once cold and skeptical, now watched her with respect. Engineers helped Siri into the neural chair. Thin wires connected to her spine and temples. The crystal was placed into the AI core. Jake held her hand until the very last second. "Come back," he whispered. She smiled. "Only if Earth stands." The moment the system activated, everything changed. Maps shifted in real time. Weapons recalibrated. Drones launched into the sky with perfect timing. For the first time, Earth was fighting with one mind. The swarm began its descent. Black ships entered the atmosphere like falling knives. One landed in the Amazon, another near Moscow. A third hovered above the Pacific. Siri's voice echoed through the command system. "Strike now." Patterns repeating. Target their cores. Railguns fired from the moon. Missiles launched from underwater bases. Fighter jets dodged and attacked with precision. Earth fought back, not as divided nations, but as one living world. The battle raged for hours. Jake led a unit in the field, helping civilians escape and clearing ground threats. His arm was cut, leg bruised, but he didn't stop. He thought only of Siri. sitting in that chair, burning her mind to save them. Inside the base, Sari trembled. Her body was still, but her eyes flickered rapidly. The neural overload was increasing, one of the engineers shouted. She can't hold much longer. But Sari didn't stop. She pushed further. She found the swarm's core, one massive ship hiding behind Earth's moon. Target. Origin vessel, she said faintly. It controls the rest. Jake heard her message from the field. He looked to the sky. The Origin vessel was almost invisible, cloaked in darkness, but now they had its location. Every weapon left was aimed at it. The final missiles launched. Sari directed the timing with perfect accuracy. The sky exploded in a flash of white and blue. The Origin ship cracked, then shattered suddenly. All swarm units began falling one by one. Their systems collapsed, their connection to the hive mind broken. The swarm was dying. Earth had survived in base Aurora. Sari collapsed in the neural chair. Alarms went off. Doctors rushed in. Jake returned, his face pale with fear. Is she breathing? He asked. They worked quickly. 1 moment passed, then 2. Then, her eyes opened slowly. I heard the stars go quiet, she whispered. Jake laughed through tears. You did it, he said. You really did it. News spread across the planet. People cried in the streets, soldiers hugged strangers. Children waved flags they didn't know the meaning of. But they knew they were free. The council held a ceremony. But Sari didn't want medals. She asked for only one thing. Let me walk under your sky. Just once, so Jake took her to the fields outside the base. They stood together watching the sunrise. The light touched her face gently, and for the first time in years she smiled without fear. A monument was built months later. It stood in the center of the New Earth Unity Plaza. 2 figures made of white stone. A small alien girl with a glowing cube, and a human technician standing beside her. At the base, carved into the stone, were the words, "She warned us." He believed. Together they saved Earth.